Hey you guys, this is Dawn Marie from Sign Parties 101 and I'm so excited to make with you a rustic snowman. Now, this is one of my most favorite things to make because one, it's rustic and I'm all about the rustic, and two, it is so simple. It can use your scraps and it makes for a great party, porch decor, house decor, anything you want to do with it. So let's go ahead and get started. So most of this is just used with scraps, 1x4 scraps. A lot of these little pieces are some pieces that you can maybe find in your trash bin from bigger 1x4s that you cut up. So it's literally the best thing to make with the winter stuff using your scraps. And so I'm super excited about that. Even this cute little nose, look, it is just like a little tiny piece from a 1x4. So the only other thing I use is a 1x2. I'll have the boards listed here with the sizes that I use. But the other thing that's nice about this project is you can literally use any size that you want. These are about 18 inches long for the back. If you have ones that are 20 or maybe ones that are 15 or 12 or whatever, you just adjust as necessary. So it's literally super simple to use your scraps, use what you have, and still create a gorgeous piece when you're finished. So the first thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna set the little snowman pieces aside and we're gonna do the back. So I picked a gray. Another thing you can do is use whatever colors that you want. So I'm gonna start by using 4 pieces of 1x4 and I have pre-sanded them, although they don't even really need to be sanded because remember, 1, this is rustic, and 2, there's no stenciling or anything that's going on this, and so it doesn't really matter if they're super smooth or not, but it's easier to stain with a smooth board, so I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my stain. I'm gonna use fast drying Varathane, and I'll have all my products that I link in the description on my Amazon store, so feel free to check those out. I'm gonna grab a rag and my gloves, and we're going to get started. So the reason why I like Varathane is because it is a fast drying stain. So it's a stain that I use at all my parties. So I'm just gonna use a 1-inch foam brush, dip it into the stain, and wipe it on. Now, it doesn't really matter the direction that you go, although I do like going with the grain. And I wanna cover it well, and then the one thing that you learn about stain is that it's meant to come off of the board, okay? You don't wanna leave stain on permanently because it's not gonna dry. So you wanna wipe it on, and then depending on the humidity, this will dry fast and get tacky. So depending on the humidity at your place, you need to wipe it off either quicker or you don't have to worry about it quite as much. But I like to do one side of the board, take your rag and then wipe it off. The longer that the stain sits on the board, the darker it's gonna be. So we would just wanna wipe it really well so it's not visibly wet, and you can touch it with your hand and it feels pretty dry. So once you do that, then I'm gonna go ahead and do all the rest of the boards on every side. So the next thing we're gonna do is grab the 1x2 pieces that are going to hold these boards together for the back and stain those as well. You don't have to do this, especially if your sign is gonna be up against a wall or a mantle or a fireplace or somewhere where you won't see the back. But sometimes I like to do the back just to give it a finished look. So I'm gonna go ahead and stain these as well. Now, before we assemble these, I'm gonna paint my snowman. So I'm just gonna set this aside and let it continue to dry for a minute, and then we will get back to that in a second. So I'm gonna take my snowman pieces and I'm gonna paint them white, of course, but I might distress them a little bit at the end. There's a couple ways that you can do that. You can either take a piece of sandpaper when you're done and kind of sand off some of the white paint to show some of the wood underneath, or you can take a rag with a little bit of brown paint or a paintbrush and dip it into the paint and then just gently wipe it across the snowman. So I'll decide that later because I'm not exactly sure what I want to do yet. But we're gonna go ahead and get our pieces, lay them out, and then get started on the snowman. Okay, so for this, I'm just gonna take some white paint and a baby wipe, and that is how I'm going to apply my paint. So I'm gonna take a plate here, some white. Really doesn't matter what white you use. I like just a very antiqued white. So it's not super creamy, but it's not stark white. It's actually antique parchment from Apple Barrel is the paint that I prefer. And I'm gonna grab a baby wipe here. Now you just kind of wrap it around your fingers, dip it into your paint, and then wipe it on your boards. The first coat is gonna be kind of light, so I like to do 2 coats when I'm doing the baby wipe method. I'm gonna get 3 sides, or I'm sorry, all the sides except 1. I guess there's more than 3 sides because of the ends. But I'm not gonna worry about the one that goes onto the board because we obviously won't see that. But I do wanna get these edge pieces. So I'm just gonna paint these on, do these other 2, and then when they're done, this will already be dry. So I'm just gonna go right back to the first one and do my second coat. Okay, now with those done, I'm gonna grab my black paint, another baby wipe, and do the exact same thing with the brim of the hat and the top piece. And now the same thing for the little tiny nose. Okay, now that all my pieces are painted and stained, I'm gonna work on putting these guys together. Okay, so to put together, you want to take your back pieces and lay them out how you want them to look first, and then we're gonna flip them over so the bad side or the back is facing up because we're gonna attach the back brackets. So I kind of wanna look at each piece. I like to find the pieces that have more character in them and lay them out. I want this distressed. So I'm gonna put some, see how this one has some saw marks and stuff on it? I want that facing up because I like to see that. So I'm gonna just decide which ones are gonna be facing up. More character, the better. That's what I say. Let's do this side. All right, so now that I have my boards laid out how I want them to look when it's finished, I'm gonna go ahead and flip them over so the bad side or the back is facing up. Okay, so now I wanna make sure that they're all even because I want them even. You can stagger them a little bit if you want. I'm kind of more of a straight sort of girl, so I'm going to make sure they are straight. And then I'm gonna get my back brackets, which are these little 1x2s. Remember, I did not stain one side, I stained the other ones because they're gonna go on the board, so you're not gonna see them. And I'm gonna lay them out. It really doesn't matter where you put them, just a few inches from the end is fine. They don't even have to be straight, which I love. And we're gonna glue them and nail them down. So I'm gonna take a little bit of wood glue. It doesn't really matter what kind of glue you have. Any sort of wood glue, super glue, anything like that will work just fine because we're not using a ton. We're gonna nail them as well. So you actually don't need a ton of glue. So I'm just gonna glue a little down the back, just like that. And I'm gonna place it on my board. And again, this is just gonna give it a little bit of added security along with those nails. Do a little bit more glue. Now we're gonna use one of my most favorite tools, and that is the nail gun. This is the Ryobi Airstrike. Again, I'll have this linked in my Amazon store. It's amazing, especially if you're gonna take it at parties, do crafts inside, so forth. You do not need an air compressor. And so this is really, really helpful at parties and places where you don't wanna lug around a really noisy and loud air compressor. So we're just gonna do 2 nails in each board. And one thing that you wanna make sure when you're doing a plank sign like this is you wanna hold the boards together as you're nailing, so it helps when you have 2 people, just to make sure that the pressure of the nail gun doesn't move your boards apart. So I'm just gonna hold them with my hand like this and then nail them, and I'm gonna do 2 nails in each board going across on both sides. Now that the back is nailed, we can go ahead and flip it over. And here is our sign, our base. Now, if you were gonna do a stenciled sign or a 3D sign, you could use this for the base. That's how I do all my planked signs as well. There's a little 2-in-1. But we're gonna do the snowman right on top of here and make a really cool 3D rustic snowman out of scraps. Super cute. All right, so I'm gonna take this base and I'm gonna lay it on the sign how I want my snowman to look first before I do any gluing or nailing. Okay, that looks about right. So the reason why we do that is to make sure that our boards are centered, even. I never measure anything, so I just kind of eyeball it. I want the same distance from the bottom to the top and so forth. So now that they're all laid out, what I'm gonna do is, because I want the rustic look, I'm gonna nail them from the top. If you don't want the rustic look, you can glue these on, and once the glue is dry, you can flip it over and nail from the back so you don't see the nails. But I like the rustic kind of look, so I'm going to nail it from the front. There, now that the snowman is all nailed on, I'm gonna go ahead and glue on the nose. Now you could nail it on, but with a piece this little, a lot of times the wood will split. So I'm just gonna use a little bit of that wood glue and glue the nose on. Okay, so I want a little bit of snowflakes or the image of snow around the edge of my board. So I'm gonna use a bristle brush. I'm gonna dip it in some white paint. The key to this is to dab off a lot of paint, okay? You do not want very much paint on this brush at all, so I just keep dabbing on the plate. You can always add more, but it's hard to remove it, so start with less. And then I'm just gonna dab around the edge of the sign. It's kind of gonna give it a little frosted look, like there's some snow on the edge. I like to add a little bit more in the corners, and then just continue around the entire sign. And there you have it, our adorable little rustic snowman. Now, my kids think that it needed some eyes and a little bit of embellishments. So go ahead if you want to do that as well. Feel free to add eyes, buttons, scarf, whatever you want. I like the simplicity of this one, but feel free to make it how you want it and have fun with your scraps. Okay, so per kids' request, I decided to add some eyes and a smile and 2 little buttons. They were just drawn on with Posca markers. Again, I'll have this in my Amazon store. After tons of paint pens, I finally found one that I liked, which is Posca. So I'll have that on my link as well. And then the buttons I just cut from my laser, but you can use any buttons that you wish. So here is the final guy. Isn't he adorable? All right, thanks for joining me, guys. We'll see you soon, and be sure to subscribe and like, and go ahead and make some fun stuff with your scraps.